Hello, I am Paige Barrington.
And I am Ashlyn Prendergast.
We are co-founders of Love Ignites Peace, and this is our podcast, the Love Ignites Peace Bathtub Chats Book Club, where every month we read a book that empowers your relationships, especially the one with yourself.
We've been book club podcasting since November of 2022. The first book that we read was The Alchemist, and since that time we've read an additional 23 books. You don't have to read the book to enjoy the book club edition of our podcast. You can just enjoy the discussion and take away a few words of wisdom. But if you want to read along with us every month, we'd love that. Or you can read the book at your pace and then listen to the podcast. There are many ways to enjoy the book club edition of our pod.
For those that have been listening for a while, welcome back. And for our first-time listeners, we are glad to have you join us.
Our on-the-air book club group today is Teresa Hernandez, a longtime spiritual coach and entrepreneur and merchandising marvel.
Hi, everybody.
Tonight, we also have with us Ashlyn Prendergast, a very wise woman still in her 20s, and my daughter. She has the heart of a lion and the mind of a business visionary. Ashlyn is the voice that keeps me in my lane and Love Ignites Peace's public presence moving forward.
We have Jenna Principe, a seeker of wisdom, marketing guru, San Diego native, and a lover of her people and life.
Woohoo! Happy to be here.
And finally me, Paige Barrington, an author, entrepreneur, public speaker, and a never-ending student of life, love, and the human experience. You can find the books that we are currently reading and the ones that we've read, along with a little bit more information about each of us at loveignitespeace.com/book-club. We are missing Noelle tonight. She is out with the flu, so we wish her well.
So, on today's podcast, instead of reviewing one specific book for this month, we are going to discuss the year in review. So stay tuned for our favorites from the year, but most importantly, our biggest insights about what we've read and the advice we'd give based off of all the information we've learned this year.
Ashlyn, would you like to list off the books that we've read for the Book Club podcast in 2024?
I sure would. So we started off January with Becoming Supernatural. We then went to February with The Soul of Money, March with Love Money, Money Loves You, April with The Seed of the Soul, May, The Magic of Surrender, June, Made into Mother, July, A Year to Live, August, Super Attractor, September, The 5 Love Languages, October, The Silent Female Scream, and finally in November, The Red Tent. So to kick it off, the first question here is share a story about how one or more of the books have connected with your life in this past year.
I can go first. I don't want to be repetitive of our January podcast, but mine really comes full circle to Becoming Supernatural. That was my top pick for the year, and that we'll get more into our top picks later. But again, closing kind of full circle from the year, that book was really impactful for me. I shared on the podcast, one of the kind of activities or the exercises in the book was to kind of write down everything that you were seeking in one area of your life and just seeing that come to fruition. And at the time, one area where I really wanted to see changes was in my work. So I wrote down, and I still have the piece of paper in my closet, I wrote down everything that I wanted to manifest, if you will, within my job or a new opportunity if needed. And it was crazy. You can go back to that podcast to listen. I'm not going to repeat the whole story, but the reason that it came full circle is because I really circled back to those methods a lot throughout the year, of just the methods he taught throughout the book of raising your energy and raising your vibration and kind of getting into that place to seek the things that you want in your life through raising to a higher frequency. And I think from that, I really became curious about frequency. I mean, Paige and Ashlyn, it's something you guys talk a lot about, but it's not necessarily something that I had spent a lot of time with, kind of understanding the frequency of different emotions. And Ashlyn, we were having a conversation the other day where it came up, and I remember you saying shame is one of the lowest frequencies, and just understanding emotions and how they tie back to frequencies and how you can use that to garner different things in your life was really eye-opening and impactful for me. And so I'm kind of coming to that time of year again, same thing with my job where I'm like, oh man, I need to do this exercise all over again. So I'm take out my piece of paper, read over it, see where I want to make changes to it. And I really think going to see some miracles happen through that. So that was a big one for me.
For me, well, one of my favorites is The Five Love Languages. It's a classic. It's a handbook. I'm familiar with it, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always a go-to. But one of the books that most really profoundly opened my mind emotionally was Love Money, Money Loves You.
Yes.
And I love, people out there, who doesn't love some money? And it really it's a different way of thinking and connecting. And the story, I thought it was a very impactful book for me personally. It was different. And so that would probably be one of my top two picks. So people out there, if you haven't read that one, it's a good one. Yeah, I think so.
What I just even love about the start of this conversation is, you have a group of people on this podcast, as well as if Noelle was here, that wouldn't all be sharing the same opinion. Mm-hmm. So my mom and I haven't obviously shared our top ones yet or our story, but just in these two conversations, Teresa loved Five Love Languages. Noelle didn't love that one. That would have been one of her lowest, but it was one of Teresa's highest. And Jenna didn't love Love Money, Money Loves You, but the rest of us absolutely loved it. So I feel like for those listening as well, if that was your experience, like that you're relating to one or not another, that's totally okay. And that's so cool. And that's part of the trying of these different books and reading these different things. You get to see what resonates with you and meet you where you're at in your life, and you get to let go of what doesn't. But I just think it's really cool that we've been able to have so many discussions this year with differing opinions, but we've still all grown in our own ways from what we've read.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it just it's a testament to listen to the podcast, and then you can actually decide if you want to read the book.
Sometimes the reviews, like the Five Love Languages, it was so, wow, it was pretty diverse on that one, right? And extreme. But sometimes the ones that are so extreme where we all like it and maybe one person critiqued it very differently, those are the ones that get people to read it. Sometimes it's not, hey, we loved it. Those challenge us a little bit. So I think that's what we all bring, because we don't all agree. So I think that's a good, that we all bring. I think that's really wonderful.
I think that was also a change from this year to the first year. I think we all respect each other so much. And so having different opinions has no bearing on the respect and consideration we have for everyone's opinions. But I think in the first year, really, we were all getting to know each other. I mean, not every single person had a connection prior to the book club. And so I remember that one of my big fears was like, well, I don't want to share my opinion if it feels like I love the book when other people don't love it, or I really don't like it and other people like it, because I just didn't know how that would be perceived. And I think that there was a level of honesty that we untapped this year for even more authentic conversation, which was amazing.
Yeah. We want everyone to feel safe in being able to, say their opinions, regardless of what those opinions are. We're not all the same. We're in different places on our journey.
I always say this too in so many of the old Loving Nancy Peace podcasts or previous Loving Nancy Peace podcast episodes. It's like there are 8 billion people on this planet. We simply cannot expect one thing to work for everyone. That's just not how it works. So that's why we are here, and that's what we're doing on this podcast. We're exploring these different ways to transform your vibration to the frequency of love, and we're providing those different tools and resources. But it's not just one tool or resource, because that just simply wouldn't work for everyone. We have to have diverse solutions, diverse ways of looking at things, and I just love that we're able to share about all those different ways here. So thank you, ladies.
Yay.
Well, let's get back to the first question. I'll jump in with my answer. The first question was share a story about how one or more of the books have connected with your life this past year. And my story is actually from Love Money, Money Loves You. So in the book, it talks about how money can just rain down from the sky if you're really open to receiving it and you put your energy into this abundance and service and joy. And I had gone out to dinner with a friend, and I will confess, I'd had 2 glasses of wine. So I was quite relaxed. And I started talking to this friend about how money just rains down from the sky and finds me. And she's looking at me a little weird, but I was like on a roll. It's so easy peasy. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it just rains down from the sky and finds me. 2 weeks later, I have a check from the IRS in my mailbox. And I will not divulge the amount, but it was huge. And I had no idea it was coming.
I love it.
It rained down from the sky and landed right in my mailbox, and consequently, I ran to the bank as soon as I possibly could so that it would land in my bank account.
Well, I'm going to tag off of you page because Love Money Loves You I had never read it, so that was a new pick for me, and it was one of my favorites. I read the relationship. That was what really hit me the most, was what is our relationship with money, how we think about it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but I shared on the podcast review of that. I had a similar experience page where I have a trunk at the foot of my bed, and I had a stack of your Amazon bills or your credit cards, and I just pay it. I'm kind of bad. I don't look at all those things, but they were stacked up. I didn't know what was in it. I'm reading her book, and I don't remember what chapter it was in, but it's your relationship, your respect, how you feel about it, what it means. And I went over to the stack, and I start going through it. And there's like a letter from, I don't even remember what it was from now, but it was money. It was a check that had been sitting in this pile for probably 8 weeks that I didn't pay attention to it. Your credit card is money. Everything is money. And I realized I'm not paying attention to any of it. And when I paid attention, I was rewarded.
I love that.
Kind of similar story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pay attention to the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You ultimately nourish the relationship, tying it back to your relationship. I absolutely love money. Money loves you. But in my answer of sharing a story about how one or more of the books have connected this past year, I think I have to start with the idea that my word for the year was empire. So my intention going into 2024 was to create an abundant, thriving, prosperous, top of your game, everything like covered in gold type experience in every single area of my life. Body, mind, spirit, my relationships, my financial house, my work, my love life, like every area just at the peak of its game. And I really feel like the books that we read this year supported that. First you want to talk about becoming supernatural. Well, that ties so much into your physical body and the experience that you can create. I thought that was so profound. Then you have something like Super Attractor by Gabby Bernstein, which was, again, incredible for the idea of manifesting, creating that empire life. You had things like Love Money, Money Loves You, which touched on the abundance, like the financial house of helping that thrive and supporting that. And I mean, if anybody on this podcast is not convinced yet to read Love Money, Money Loves You, I also experienced an influx of abundance, and part of that was through the relationship of money. Like I literally started talking to money, putting the vibe out there. Even in my monthly spreadsheet, when I would go through my money, I would put unexpected influx of cash. And out of nowhere, we found a check that hadn't been paid to me from a year ago.
Ooh.
So,
I
mean, yeah, it is really cool. And I mean, I would ask people on the book club podcast right now, if they're, those that are listening are igniters, how many people could you go talk to right now that have had some unique experience with money like that? I don't know how many you would be able to talk to if they weren't open. I mean, we read this book and we all kind of put it to work this year in that way. So I loved that from the financial house. And then, you have the magic of surrender. And then even going on to books like The Silent Female Scream and Made into Mother and The 5 Love Languages, from a familial place for me, those were impactful. Just unpacking different layers around the female I don't want to call it plight, but like what it means to be a female in 2024 in our Western culture. And then what that also meant in my mother-daughter relationship with my mom, and understanding that, she's a person too, and what it looks like when your needs aren't met. There just were so many layers. And so I'm so profoundly grateful again to our book club this year for being able to help me build my empire, body, mind, and spirit, relationally in every area. So
Yay.
that feels pretty good. And again, that's why we're here. I mean, that's not the only reason. Everyone's here not to build my empire, but I'm saying we're here to help ourselves, to help the world live to their highest potential and what's on their heart's desire. And for me, that was that word empire. And I know that it's shown up in other ways for you ladies too. So,
and just a reminder for the listeners, we actually did a podcast this year with the author of Love Money, Money Loves You.
I just realized I didn't read Love Money, Money Loves You. I read The Soul of Money.
No, but you
I
liked
I
The
thought
Soul
you
of Money.
started and you didn't like it.
Yeah, you stopped reading it.
Oh, but I don't remember.
Jenna, pull it out. It's actually a quick read. And I think it's a good reminder handbook as we evolve emotionally, physically, mentally, all these things. Because it really is about a relationship.
I mean, it's about money, but there's really a much bigger vision.
Once we do some of that clearing stuff / just in general, I think if you picked it up again, I think you'd like it. I think you're ready. Because I know you really didn't like it the first time. You were like, I couldn't even. Yeah, so that podcast is season 3, episode 10, The Secrets to Making Your Money Dreams Come True, with author Sarah McCrum.
Perfect. Listen to that one if you get a chance too. All right, on to our next question. Ask your younger self, what do I wish I knew then that I've learned from reading one or more of these books this year? I can actually start this one because I made a list. So from Love Money, Money Loves You, what I wish I knew from my younger self was, don't fear money and let go of all of those beliefs that are false that I had about money. The money, like money is evil and it doesn't grow on trees, like all these kind of programs that run in your head. And then that really the secret to having a really healthy relationship with money is to be joyful, have faith, and be of service. And I just thought that was such a beautiful message. Becoming supernatural. I'm truly more powerful than I've ever realized. Something that that was, I thought, a good point. The silent female scream. For me, I really connected with this idea of the culture of female service, because that was something that in my marriage and my lineage, I hadn't connected the dots on that. But it's a real thing for many women. The magic of surrender. I mean, truly, profoundly, how letting go of control and surrendering each moment can actually create so much magic in your life. Super attractor. I just wrote faith, faith, faith. I am going on here. 5 love languages. Being able to speak about what makes me feel so loved and to know what that is, but then being able to inquire and ask and offer that same energy to those that are super important to me. I've held Ashlyn's hand more this year than ever. She loves physical touch. And so holding her hand, even though it isn't my favorite thing, makes her feel loved. And then the very last one, we read The Red Tent, but I really loved how the stories of our past, I love this concept. The story of our past have created our future. And realizing that those are just stories and not the truth about being a woman, a man, a human being. We are not the stories that we've been told. So gosh, this year, there were a lot of things for me in the books that we read this year. I wish I would have known as a younger human being.
For me, my younger self, that question took me back immediately. I saw myself as around 8 years old. just, that's what the question, that's where it took me. And I wish I had this material, had teachers around me that had different concepts to teach me. Everything for me is about relationships and no fear. Becoming supernatural for me was no fear. Just be. Let every cell of your body and your thoughts expand and grow and fly. No fear. The soul of money. No fear. Make a change. Doesn't matter how little or no fear. Those are relationships with ourself to concepts. Love money, money loves you was probably one of my top ones with the 5 love languages. Again, it's about the relationship. At 8 years old, learning the relationship of money, that it's energy, that it can grow and flow and move and build empires. And my relationship with it, there's no fear. Oh my God, what a different world we would all be living in without fear. For me, that was almost an underlying theme. The magic of surrender. No fear. You can't surrender if you're afraid. So for me, it's let the heart and the mind and the soul soar. Fear is a concept we've been taught. And at 8 years old, I wish I would have someone taught me there's no fear, no fear. So that was my underlying theme, really mostly for most of the books. So thank you for suggesting those books. They were wonderful.
So they made you, Teresa, feel like there was no fear, or that the key or the secret to creating the life of your dreams was no fear, or all of the above?
Kind of all the above, but the key to all of this, to living a life you want, meeting the people you want, having a business you want, it's about a relationship with ourself and a concept, but we were taught there's fear around it, and fear are many different words and many different feelings and many different concepts. But if we at a young age were to have no fear and have this beautiful relationship that we understand energy, there is an expansive freedom, and freedom is no fear.
Yeah. Having no fear would completely change your relationship with life.
With life. Absolutely. So for me, it is current, and that's an ongoing concept. And at 8 or younger or middle school, just to have no fear would be amazing for every human. Yeah. That's just me. That's mine.
I would love to go back to be little again and not have fear.
Oh man.
Can you imagine? Really? Don't you get shivery spirit shivers? Like, wow. So that's how you build your empire, Ashley. No fear.
Facts. Your faith has to be greater than your fear. That is 100%.
Absolutely.
I think fear presents itself in our lives as adults even still. And those are kind of the areas that we need to work on. At least it does for me. I think it does for most people. But Teresa, you mentioned the magic of surrender, and that was going to be my biggest takeaway for a piece of advice that I would give my younger self. It's really interesting because this happens to me every year with multiple book clubs. Even if the book isn't my favorite, I end up taking something really meaningful from it. And I think The Magic of Surrender, I don't think was my favorite book, but the concept I've come back to again and again. And for me, I think ever since I was a kid and even now, I think the need to control outcomes has been a really prevalent theme, because it seems taking control is the path of least resistance, but that's not true. It's the path of most resistance. That is where when you try to control the outcome, that is where you are creating issues and blockages and you're not letting life flow. And this sounds like such a silly example, but this is an example from my adult life, but I want to tie it back to being a kid and giving that advice. With wedding planning, there's so many messages, and there's just this idea that you need to make it perfect. And so I've kind of reverted to those past behaviors of feeling like I need to control. You need to find the perfect vendors. You need to negotiate. You need to do all of these things to control the outcome. And I was just like, Jenna, like, you have to just surrender and let go. And it's like crazy how easy everything becomes when you just do that. And when I think back to being a kid, I feel like that was really a prevalent theme for me in school. It was like really like controlling like how much I studied and how much effort I put into school to like control the outcome of getting good grades. And like, I think the reality is I could have saved myself so much suffering, because I probably would have done well either way. Like, you have to, of course, put in the work, but I think when you're not surrendering to like, hey, you've done enough, that was like a common theme for me. It's like, well, I haven't done enough. What if I don't know this one concept well enough? Or what if I caused so much suffering to myself, particularly in school, from trying to control, because it was like, what if? And that stems from fear, tying back to you, Teresa. It's like, what if the fear? And then it's like, what's the worst case scenario? You get a B? Like, ooh, you know? Ooh, like, that really would have
or even a C.
Yeah, that really would have impacted the trajectory of my life, I'm sure. And I would have just been able to alleviate so much suffering, to just surrender and say, like, you know what? You got this. You paid attention in class. You studied an appropriate amount of time. I was a very social kid, but like, there were times where I would like even skip stuff because I didn't feel like I was like well enough prepared for like doing well on an exam, or doing well for something, like doing well for a sporting event. And it's like, God, what a waste. Like, caused a lot of unnecessary suffering.
Well, Jenna, it's a good thing you studied hard, because we did check your GPA before allowing you to. Whew, that was a close one. No, I so get that. And I have to say, I'm so proud of you in how you have embodied this. I can definitely vouch for the fact that Jenna has taken that into her life fully. And we were just talking about this with wedding planning, like she just mentioned, but the people that really she felt called to were like available with no effort. And the other boulders she kind of tried to push up the hill weren't the right ones, but she spent like, an additional X amount of time trying to make it perfect, trying to control. And then she was like, realized, whoa, what am I doing? I've learned this lesson. Actually, if I just surrender, like, I know the right people, the right vendors, the right place, it'll all come together. And we've even been talking about that, about wedding dress shopping coming up. It's like, we just flow with it. Like, yeah, there's a timeline, but the perfect dress will fit into your timeline. And obviously it's just one small example, but the reality is that you could apply that to any area of life. Mm-hmm. And also from a fear perspective, going back to that, I think when you look at what you are afraid of, follow that and go work on that, because that's where your lessons are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with that said, I will give you my takeaways. I really tried to make them succinct into like basically 2 quick sentences. And I would tell my younger self that society puts a lot of expectations on what it means to be a woman. And within that lens, question everything, because it's not necessarily true. And I think when you're growing up, you think it's the truth. You're learning and you're like, oh, that's just the way it is. That's just the truth. That's just how a woman should be. And we just accept it. Or, we've always commonly bought into the narrative of what your body should look like. Oh, it's supposed to look like that. It's supposed to be like that. Or I'm supposed to behave this way. Question everything. A lot of it is fake news. And then the other one that I think is so important, just in general for my younger self, but I think just for women across the board, is that your anger is a sign that your needs are not being met. So really, if you find yourself getting angry often, the question in the situation is, how am I, or is this situation not meeting my needs? Because anger is kind of a cry for help. So I don't think I was necessarily a particularly angry child by any means, but that one, I just think that a lot of women would benefit from hearing.
Mm-hmm. But even current time, whatever age, say your job, your career, people get angry at where they have to go to work at. Are they angry at the work or the job, or they aren't being fulfilled. Mm-hmm. So it comes out. How many do we know that have families, new mothers with older kids, and we get angry? Are we really angry because they didn't clean the room? Or is something within us not being fulfilled and we project over here? It's a theme in all aspects. And yeah. I feel that's where mindfulness, right? Being really present and mindful and self-aware, we do the most growth. And I think our friends and family, we recognize that in each other. And these books help. They're like little pokes of reminders. Some of it isn't anything we haven't learned or knew or practiced. It kind of gets put on a shelf. It's still there, and we just get little pokes. And that's what I think these books this year did for me. Little pokes to remember. Mm-hmm.
I love it. I want to throw one more in there. You know, we just talked a lot about fear, and I think fear is such a common thing for a younger self. And especially before you start going down this journey that we have all gone down with this exploration of faith, ourself, manifestation, life, like just so many layers of the things that we talk about on here. And this quote is from Super Attractor, but it is practice your faith like a full-time job. And I wish I could tell little Ashlyn that, like, be so, now obviously she didn't have the same face she has today, but the antidote to fear is faith. And so the more you can lean into your belief system, you also are changing, you know, your frequency of what you're attracting. It's a whole interconnected scenario here, but it changes how you feel, and it also changes what you attract into your life.
I just want to say that everything that we have read, really even over the last couple of years, has deepened my relationship with myself and has deepened my relationship with, like, the universe. For everything that we've read, even, you know, surrender, love money, money loves you, like the prior year, you know, we read the angel book that we were talking about. I mean, we've read so many things, and that idea of faith, and my faith just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper as I read these books. It just keeps reaffirming that. Mm-hmm. So it's such a beautiful thing. Thanks for reading along, everyone.
And Paige, it's not just our readers, our listeners. It's not just reading the book. What parts of those books are we really grabbing on and actually putting into practice? Mm-hmm. And how long do we put it into a practice that it can become a habit? So what I'm grateful for, again, are the books to poke and, okay, let me do this 11 different times, you know.
And maybe we'll get it after 11 different times.
And sometimes
or 23.
We need reminders, and it's important. So thank you.
Our next question, and I actually think we might have already answered this question. I'm going to read it, and we'll just take a poll here. If you could give your friends and listeners a piece of advice for now from the 2024 books, what would your advice be?
I do feel like these questions are slightly different because I think it is different to look at your younger self that needed a little bit of love and support versus the girl that is, or the woman that is there today. And so I'm going to keep mine pretty succinct, but at the end of the day, joy and alignment is the energy of creation. So keep being the light and enjoying life. Don't buy into the hustle culture myth. And then also, as we talked about, we learned a lot about money this year. And I would say on top of all of that I just said, make a request to the energy of money. Make it clear. Do not block it. Do not confuse it. Those would be my two pieces. Joy and alignment are the energy of creation. And make a request to the energy of money and make it clear. Make it succinct. Don't say want. Don't say need. Say, I am so grateful for the extra $10,000 that's in my bank account by January 2nd, 2025. Boom. You don't have to put any expectations how it gets there. Just trust and know that you're willing to be of service and allow it to flow into your life. You can also not put an exact number on it. You can say, I am so excited for the influx of abundance I have that allows me to travel and see my mom 3 times a year. Or I am so stoked to go on this new vacation. Like this vacation is going to be so epic. Whatever it is, put it in the positive, state it, don't confuse it, and do not put any parameters around how it has to happen. And if you have a miracle story happen through some of these things, which remember, miracles are the law of the universe. That was from Super Attractor. Miracles are actually like the way of the universe versus them being like a one-off type of thing. Like if you are in resonance, miracles are happening all the time. Let us know, because we would love to hear how learning something from one of these books and this discussion has truly impacted your life. So I just implore anybody from this year, if this book club podcast has supported you, helped you, encouraged you, created something beautiful in your life, reach out to us. You know, you can find us on Instagram. Also, you can always email us. I'm just going to throw it out there now too. You can email us at Paige, Paige, at loveignitespeace.com. And we would be more than happy to hear your story.
That is hard to follow, but I think that one of mine is it's okay to make yourself a priority. I really struggle with that. I think I really struggle with thinking it's selfish at times from like old patterning of just like, you know, thinking, and this ties back to like what it means to be a woman and what we've seen throughout these books, the 5 love languages, these books about being a woman, even the attitude of money. It's like what, like, you know, to be like a humble person of service. What have we been patterned to think that looks like? It means giving yourself to other people and not prioritizing your needs, because what is prioritizing your needs? It's selfish. Well, we're continuing to learn on this podcast and through these books that that's not true. We can't pour from an empty cup. And so I think a lot of these are just realizing like prioritizing your needs is okay. Ashlyn will be so proud of me. Well, I haven't done it yet, but I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but I have a pretty old car. My car is 17 years old. I have driven the same car since I was in high school. Never really cared. I don't care about cars. Like what gets me from point A to point B, like works for me. And recently, and everyone gives me so much crap. Like all my friends from high school are always like, seriously, Jenna, like do you have to like, you know, put reins on that thing and like get it? Like, you know, like I hear it all. And Christmas is coming. So my friends from high school are like coming home. So I just know I'm going to hear it. Martin gives me so much crap. Anyways, I've never really cared. But recently I've been actually like, as it's getting darker at night, I haven't been feeling as safe in it. It still drives great, but like I'm almost a 30-year-old woman. Like I can upgrade. But I've really been like, I don't need this. Like I want to buy a house. Like I don't care about getting a new car. And Ashlyn was like, well, why can't you have both? I'm like, and also, cause I was like, well, I'll get a new car when I have kids. Because I was like, I'll need something safer then. And she's like, why is your own body and person not good enough to get a safer car? Like, you're going to do it for somebody else, but not for you. And I was like, yeah, that's not, doesn't really like track. So I'm looking at new cars. But that really comes back to, it really has been an exercise in realizing that I'm worth it and detangling some of this. Like, it's not about the material object. It's not about like, these kind of like ideas that I've had. It's about like, I can afford a new car. It would be a safer option to have a new car. Like, why don't you get a new car, girl? So anyways, in the new year, I am looking for a new car. I'm putting it out there because I would love to manifest something great that is very safe, that I can plug my music into, that has seat heaters, because never met those in my car. Push to start, never met her.
I want to add one more thing to that list, just based off of so many things we talked about, and especially a lot in Super Attractor. You also deserve to enjoy this car. Like, not only is it safer, not only is it, you know, better gas mileage, but you deserve to enjoy it too. Like, it's just something else that's going to bring you joy and pleasure. And I'm not saying everyone out there go buy 75 things to bring you joy and pleasure, but I am saying that there's also nothing wrong with that. That can also be part of your life and your journey too. And I love that. And I'm like so stoked. I cannot believe I am hearing that the toothless Corolla is going to make its final run eventually. But I support whatever you find. I'm really excited for you.
So this is funny. I'm going to wrap up this story, but the reason my car is called the Toothless Corolla, I drive a Toyota Corolla, is because when I was a teenager, I rear-ended I shouldn't even be divulging this. Hopefully, I don't need people to know this information. But you know what? In the spirit of authenticity, I rear-ended a car that had like a trailer hitch on the back. I'm a good driver, I swear. And it put like a hole. It wasn't anything dangerous. It was just a little fender bender, but it put a little hole in my car. And I never really got it fixed. And my dad like plastered over the front of it. Martin was like, said something. I don't remember the context of it, but I was like, my car is not that bad. And he goes, Jenna, it's missing a tooth in the bumper. Oh, man. I think it's time.
Well, tagging off what Ashlyn said, and we're talking about this idea of joy. I mean, that would be one of my pieces of advice for the listeners coming up into the new year is create your life from joy as much as possible. You deserve it. You're worthy of it. The more you create from joy, truly the more abundant you're going to feel in your life. And wouldn't that be great if everyone felt that way? So and also going back to what Ashlyn said, you know, she had her word for this year. My word for this year was unlimited. And I think that would be my next piece of advice for our listeners is let go of the things that keep you limited and small, because there is freedom when you live on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Freedom to truly enjoy life.
Amen.
For me, I do try to live and practice this, and I think most people that know me validate. For me, the highest relationship and most important is with the universe, with universal energy. And for me, Jenna, when I'm hearing you speak, you know, your car and the this, and you're benevolent and you have to give, and you know how extravagant and these different things. For me, the relationship with the universe sees us. We are connected to that energy at all times. And the universe wants us to be our best so that our best can give freely to all things. In order to be that, we need to feel good, mind, body, soul. That's what makes living life worth it. How are we creating our little energetic cellular sphere? And what is that representing? When other people see how we live, hear what we say, experience our world, if it comes from a point of true abundance, not extravagance, I'm not saying that, but abundance, the universe cellularly and energetically responds and builds upon itself. We must put our own oxygen mask on first. That is living in freedom to the fullest, because we'll be healthy, we will have everything we need, and then we can give even more. We are okay to do that. It is okay to have a nice home, to buy a blouse once in a while if you want to, have a good meal, because the universe is responding to that at all times. It's watching you.
And to tag off that just a tiny bit, in Love Money, Money Loves You, one of the chapters is dedicated to it's okay to want. It's okay to desire. And the reason for that is, as human beings, we are creators. And so those wants and desires feed this innate ability within us to create. And I thought that was a really interesting way to demonstrate that. And I think that says what you're saying, which is those desires are innately connected to the universe and connected within you as that co-creator in whatever it is you desire.
And to tag off that, when you spend money, you're putting the energy in flow. Like it's the state of giving and receiving. It's the flow of money. It's allowing the circulation. And money is a big fan of that. Well, I think we're ready to do our favorite quote. My quote of the year is from Sarah McCrum. Love Money, Money Loves You. And it is dream big, bigger, and bigger still. Believe that dreams do come true. So as we go into this next year, feel free to set your dreams as big as humanly possible. Because as my mom said, you're unlimited. This universe is infinite. Money is infinite. Your abilities to create are infinite. Miracles are infinite. And then surrender. But yeah, dream big, bigger, and bigger still. Believe that dreams do come true.
Mine is from Becoming Supernatural. There were a couple, I don't know if this is like the best of the best, but the only way we can change our lives is to change our energy. In other words, to change our state of being, we have to change how we think and how we feel. That was just really impactful to me because we're not just a product of our circumstances. We can make anything joyful, to pull back from your word page, and create the life we want to live and the life of our dreams.
I love that, and I just want to put an extra exclamation point on that because that's really what we're doing with Love Ignites Peace. We're empowering you as the readers, as the listeners, as the igniters, as individuals to do exactly what Jenna just said. Because it's change your energy, change your life, change your frequency, change your life.
Well, mine isn't anything overwhelming. It's so simple. It's almost like, yawn time. But it was from the 5 love languages, which still, for me, boils down to relationships with all things. It just, everything, peel the onion back, and that's kind of where you end up. And the quote from the book, and we've probably all said it, we scratch our heads. It's such a simple thing. I'm amazed by how many individuals mess up every new day with yesterday.
That's a good
one. That's a mic drop, Teresa. Oh.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty deep when you go into it, but yeah, the baggage we carry forward.
I know.
What are we surrendering and what are we letting go of? And why do you drag things along?
There's so many good analogies from the airline industry. Put your mask on first, and then they have this idea of the 50-pound limit.
Maybe I was a flight attendant.
Maybe. I'm going to, carry on your baggage. Don't let go of that 50 pounds.
Yep. That's funny.
My quote is from a book that we really have not given a lot of voice to tonight on this podcast, but it is in my top 5, and it was The Seat of the Soul. And it was from pages 89 and 90, and some of this is a little paraphrase, but the light that flows through your system is universal energy. You give that light form. I love that. You give that light form because you are light. What you feel, what you think, how you behave, what you value, and how you live your life reflect the way that you are shaping the light that is flowing through you. You change the way you shape the light, which is flowing through you by changing your consciousness. And I didn't even realize this, but I think kind of a cool thing is that quote kind of sums up everybody's quote that they picked, but in a different way.
That was a good one.
Yeah. So what are your top 5 picks for the year? What would you recommend the readers definitely read if they haven't read along with us? Jenna, lead us off.
I only picked 3. But also Super Attractor, I really want to read. I've heard it's amazing, and I was out for that book club, but I just have a feeling that would have been my number 1 choice if I had read it. But my number 1 was Becoming Supernatural from January. Number 2 was the 5 love languages, and 3 was Magic of Surrender, because I keep pulling back from that. And I literally remember the title of the book when certain things happen. I'm like, surrender and all will be well. The magic of surrender. Like, I repeat the magic of surrender in my head sometimes.
I love that.
Want me to do mine? Number 1, I think it's just a classic. It's a good pocketbook. It's one I recommend when someone new comes for any kind of spiritual workshops or counseling, anything like that. The 5 love languages. It's just, and you can make it modern. I think it's an important book. Love Money and Money Loves You. I think it's an important read, not just about money, but it's the concept of relationships with energy. And that can be applied to anything. I think that is an important book when you read it with energy in mind. Energy, the soul of money. I love how that was written, the concept of it. I loved. I think it's an important, and just probably my fourth one would be The Magic of Surrender. Allowing, no fear, let it go. I think there's an important message in there. So those four for me.
So my top 5 for the year would be Love Money, Money Loves You, number 1. Number 2, The Magic of Surrender. Number 3, The Seat of the Soul, which I'm really kind of surprised that no one mentioned other than me tonight, because as a group, I think that was one of our highest rated books as a group this year. Becoming Supernatural was number 4, and number 5 is The 5 Love Languages.
Okay, you guys, I'll put Seed of the Soul as my number 5 then.
Guys, I'm not going to lie. Why do I not remember that one?
I think you read it, Jenna.
What is that one about?
The guy was like on Oprah Winfrey, and it had the intro by Maya Angelou, and it talked a lot about, I liked it, merged like science and spirituality quite a bit.
Gary
Wait,
Zukav?
that wasn't the one with the near-death experience, right?
No.
Okay, that was the previous year. Okay.
Gary Zukav.
I know, I just don't remember it. I don't know. I'm going to go Google it really quick.
It's a classic. It's a classic. Yeah.
I actually really liked that one too. I'm surprised we haven't talked about it more this year, but I really did enjoy that book quite a bit. Well, I'm going to go the opposite of you ladies, and I'm going to go bottom to top, so you have to kind of like drum roll it up to see what my number 1 is going to be. Insert drum roll. So I mean, gosh, I really did love so many of the books this year. Number 6, I'm going to make up for some less than 5 lists by having a more than 5 list, because I'm so extra. So number 6 for me will be The Soul of Money. I did think it was an incredible book. I would definitely recommend it, but the reason it's at number 6 is just because it's not like necessarily one that jumped my evolution to a 10, but it still was very, very, very solid. Number 5 is going to be The 5 Love Languages. I truly did love that book. Could not recommend it to more people if I tried. And I think it's at 5 because I already did know the basic concepts. But I did glean a lot of good things in addition to the basic 5 love languages from that. If I hadn't have read it before, it would definitely be number 1, I feel like, or at least in the top 3. Number 4 would be The Magic of Surrender because of everything we've discussed. It's a very powerful point and way to look at the world and approach the world. Number 3 would be Becoming Supernatural. I mean, I think that book in of itself could be read throughout the totality of 1 year. There's so much in there that could truly change your life, especially if you are someone dealing with a serious health issue or a lot of past traumas, those kinds of things. He really offers an amazing lens of changing the situation that you're facing. Number 2 is Super Attractor, which I know I shocked myself that it wasn't number 1 because Gabby Bernstein's books are my faves. I absolutely love Super Attractor. Could not recommend it more. But as we've clearly had a favorite throughout this book club, number 1 is Love Money, Money Loves You. I think it's more than money, right? It's, as my mom has said, when you read that book, it's the relationship of money, but really it's talking about universal law with everything. Could not recommend it more. If you're going to start your year with a book that is one from this list, that would be my first recommendation. So
I am actually reading it for the 3rd time. There's just so much depth to it. Yeah. And it is with like another book club group, but yeah, already I'm getting more out of it than I did the first 2 times I read it.
I'd agree with you. I think it's a book that you can like reread through your whole life. And the chapters are so short and so easy to digest. It's like where Gabby Bernstein's books, I adore them, but there's a lot in just like 2 pages. You're like, woo, that was a lot to take in. I need a second. And Love Money, Money Loves You. I can read like kind of more quickly, but with so much time in one chapter in a way that's not overwhelming, I guess, if that makes sense. Like it's like one concept in one chapter. So, well, thank you, listeners. This has been, and thank you, book club. Thank you, team. Yay. I mean, this has been just such a good, fun year, a fun season on our podcast. And I'm really excited to kick off next year with everyone because we're going to be focusing on topics brought forth, one topic per book club member, it sounds like, that has been a way in which they have gotten their freak on, basically a topic that has transformed their life in a positive way. So there should be a lot of actionable ways for you as listeners, as igniters, people gleaning things from this podcast and journeying with us to really put into motion with our pick of books next year. We are going to start off the year with the book Atomic Habit by James Clear. So what a way to start off the year. And that is not as spiritual and esoteric as we usually get, but sometimes it's the most practical things that also can create some of the biggest transformations that allow us to raise our vibration.
This would be a topic that Ashlyn has picked. And so what would this topic be that inspired you to pick this book for January?
Well, I guess you'll just have to wait and hear in January.
Oh, well, okay. I guess we'll do
Tune
that.
back in. But yes, I mean, the topic in general, I think that I would like to discuss is that creating structure in my life as more of a free spirit has changed my life. So bringing form into my free spiritedness. And that comes through routine and through discipline and things like that. But the irony is those old structures used to feel like chains to me, but they've actually created a lot of freedom in my life. So I want to share that with you all so that we can possibly see if there's a way that some of these structures can bring freedom to you too.
That
Awesome.
Those structures can help you get your freak on.
And freedom is a vibration, right? It's a frequency. So
Yes, it is.
raise it on up, party people. Let's get our freaks on.
I just ordered it, so I'm on it.
All right. I'm so curious how everyone's going to like it. I'm excited.
Well, thank you for listening this year. We hope you've taken a few pieces of wisdom away on this journey with us. And as always, I am sending you love from my heart to yours.
Get your freak on.